Breaking news from around your world on this Thursday, March 21st, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. A ferry overloaded with people celebrating the Kurdish New Year sank in the Tigris River near the Iraqi city of Mosul on Thursday, killing at least 71 people, mostly women and children. Officials said the accident occurred as scores of people were out in a tourist area celebrating Nowruz, which marks the Kurdish New Year and the arrival of spring. 71 people died, including 33 women, 12 children, and 10 men. 55 were rescued, including 19 children. Officials said the ferry sank because of a technical problem and that there weren't many boats in the area to rescue people. Search operations are still underway, but it's not known how many people were aboard the ferry. Nowruz, or the Persian New Year, dates back to 1700 BC and incorporates Zoroastrian traditions. It is celebrated across territories that once made up the ancient Persian Empire, stretching from the Middle East to Central Asia. Iraqi forces drove the Islamic State group from Mosul in 2017 after a devastating campaign that left entire neighborhoods in ruins. Boeing's grounded airliners are likely to be parked longer now that European and Canadian regulators plan to conduct their own reviews of changes the company is making after two of the jets crashed. They want to do more than simply take the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration's word that alterations to a key flight control system will make the 737 MAX safer. Boeing went to work on upgrading the software to, among other things, rely on more than one sensor and limit the system's power to point the plane's nose downward without direction from the pilots. Those reviews scramble an ambitious schedule set by Boeing and could undercut the FAA's reputation around the world. By international agreement, planes must be certified in the country where they're built, and regulators around the world have almost always accepted that country's decision. European airlines have flown Boeing jets with little independent review by the European Aviation Safety Agency, and U.S. airlines operate Airbus jets without a separate, lengthy certification process by the FAA. That practice is being frayed, however, in the face of growing questions about whether the FAA relied too much on Boeing to vouch for critical safety matters and whether it understood the significance of a new automated flight control system on the MAX. Meanwhile, the FAA is getting a new chief. The White House said President Trump is nominating former Delta Airlines executive and pilot Stephen Dixon to head the agency. Daniel Elwell has been acting FAA administrator since January of 2018. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern announced an immediate ban Thursday on sales of military-style semi-automatic and automatic weapons, like the ones used in the attacks on two mosques in Christchurch that killed 50 worshippers. The man charged in the attack had purchased his weapons legally using a standard firearms license and enhanced their capacity by using 30-round magazines done easily through a simple online purchase. She said every semi-automatic weapon used in the terrorist attack on Friday will be banned. Ardern's announcement comes less than a week after the killings, as all 50 bodies were formally identified and families were burying them. At least 6 funerals took place Thursday, including for a teenager, a youth soccer coach, and a Muslim convert who loved connecting with other women at the mosque. One of New Zealand's largest gun retailers, Hunting and Fishing New Zealand, says it supports any government easier to permanently ban such weapons. Exactly 1,000 days after Britain voted to leave the European Union, and 9 days before it's scheduled to walk out the door, Prime Minister Theresa May hit the pause button Wednesday, asking the bloc to postpone the UK's departure until June 30th. EU leaders, who are exasperated by Britain's Brexit melodrama, will only grant the extension if May can win the UK Parliament's approval next week for her twice-rejected Brexit deal. Otherwise, the UK is facing a chaotic no-deal departure from the bloc within days, or a much longer delay that May says she will not allow while she is in power. May, who has spent 2.5 years trying to lead Britain out of the EU, said it was a matter of great personal regret that she had to seek a delay to Brexit. In a televised statement from 10 Downing Street, May said she shared the frustration felt by many Britons who've had enough of endless Brexit debates and infighting, though she did not accept a role in causing it. Instead, she blamed Parliament for the deadlock and warned that if lawmakers did not back her deal, it would cause irreparable damage to public trust. May asked to delay Britain's withdrawal until June 30th and said she would set out her reasons to EU leaders at a summit in Brussels on Thursday. The U.S. Special Representative for Afghanistan, Zalmay Khalilzad, will meet with Chinese, Russian, and European Union diplomats on Afghanistan Thursday as he tries to forge a peace deal with the Taliban to bring an end to America's longest war. The State Department said in a statement, discussion topics include international support for the Afghan peace process, the role each party can play in bringing an end to the war, and progress to date in peace talks. Khalilzad will brief the diplomats on his recent talks in Doha, Qatar with the Taliban, where the United States reported progress, but no final deal on a withdrawal of U.S.-led international forces. The Taliban rejects direct negotiations with the Kabul government led by President Ashraf Ghani, accusing it of being a U.S. puppet. U.S. negotiators are pressing the Taliban to accept a ceasefire and talks on Afghanistan's political future with representatives of Afghan society, including Ghani's government. But the talks have primarily focused on the Taliban's counterterrorism assurances and a U.S. troop withdrawal. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe may meet President Donald Trump in the United States in late April for talks on North Korea and Japan-U.S. trade. That's according to government officials and Japanese media. The meeting was requested by the Japanese side and arrangements were being made for the end of April. The talks would likely focus on North Korea after Trump's failed meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in February against a backdrop of Tokyo's concern that is being sidelined in those negotiations. NHK reports Japan's cabinet is expected to vote next month on extending unilateral sanctions against North Korea by 2 years. Japan-U.S. trade is also expected to be on the agenda. Trump has prodded Japanese automakers to add more jobs in the United States as the White House has threatened to impose tariffs of up to 25% on imported vehicles on the grounds of national security. Japanese officials have repeatedly said that Abe and Trump agreed last year that Washington would not impose auto tariffs as long as bilateral trade talks are going on. Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen will visit Hawaii next week on a tour of diplomatic allies in the Pacific, according to official media on Thursday, a move likely to anger China, which claims the self-ruled island as its own amid tension across the strait. China regards Taiwan as its sacred territory and regularly calls it the most sensitive and important issue in ties with the United States, complaining to Washington about transit stops by Taiwan presidents. Tsai will transit Hawaii next Wednesday on her way home from an 8-day visit to 3 diplomatic allies. Taiwan, which China deems ineligible for state-to-state relations, has formal ties with 17 countries, almost all small nations in Central America and the Pacific. The island nation battles to keep its allies from switching their allegiance to China, which last year persuaded Burkina Faso, the Dominican Republic, and El Salvador to forge relations with Beijing. The Federal Reserve left its key short-term interest rate unchanged Wednesday and projected no rate hikes this year, reflecting a dimmer view of the economy as growth weakens in the United States and abroad. The central bank said it was keeping its benchmark rate, which can influence everything from mortgages to credit cards to home equity lines of credit, in a range of 2.25% to 2.5%. Chairman Jerome Powell said the Fed will remain continually patient about pursuing any further rate hikes. It also announced that by September, it will no longer reduce its bond portfolio, a change intended to help keep long-term loan rates down. Combined, the moves signal no major increases in borrowing rates for consumers and businesses. And together with the Fed's dimmer forecast for growth this year, 2.1%, down from a previous projection of 2.3%, the statement it issued after its latest policy meeting suggests it's grown more concerned about the economy. And with inflation remaining mild, the Fed feels no pressure to tighten credit. The Fed now projects one rate hike in 2020 and none in 2021. The Fed has raised rates 4 times last year and a total of 9 times since 2015. Finland maintained its number 1 spot for the second year in a row. That's according to the United Nations World Happiness Report released on Wednesday. Northern Europeans held on to most of the top positions in the happiness report, with Denmark, Norway, Iceland, Netherlands, Switzerland, Sweden, New Zealand, Canada, and Austria rounding out the top 10. Norway, Denmark, and Switzerland have each held the top spot in recent years. The report, released on the United Nations World Happiness Day, evaluated 156 countries, and those at the top were found to have high values in 6 categories of well-being: income, healthy life expectancy, social support, freedom, trust, and generosity. The United States fell from 14th in 2017 and 18th in 2018 to 19th this year. The U.S. wasn't the only world superpower not to hit the top 10. Britain was 15th, Germany was 17th, Japan was 58th, Russia was 68th, and China was 93rd. The top 10 least happy countries were South Sudan, Central African Republic, Afghanistan, Tanzania, Rwanda, Yemen, Malawi, Syria, Botswana, and Haiti. The largest drops in happiness were in Yemen, India, Syria, Botswana, and Venezuela. And that's your update for this Thursday, March 21st, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Thanks so much for listening and for supporting this podcast, and I hope you have a wonderful day.